Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our PROergonomics monthly webinar. This month's topic is on what makes a product ergonomic. We here at PROergonomics get a lot of questions on this in terms of all the different products that are on the market that claim to be ergonomic. What's a good product? What would we recommend? I know that it can be really overwhelming or confusing to know which mouse or which keyboard to pick amongst all the different options that are out there. So that's the goal in today's webinar, is to help you understand a bit more about the products that are on the market. Specifically, I'm going to focus on a few different keyboards and mouse products today. And so I'm going to give an overview about some of the features on when or why they would be a good option to use. And then I can also note some of the potential drawbacks in terms of why they wouldn't be a good fit. To give you a bit of background information on myself, my name is Sarah Snabel. I am a registered kinesiologist and a certified professional ergonomist. I'm one of the co-founders of PROergonomics. So I'll be the presenter for today. My colleague Jennifer McGillis is online as well. At PROergonomics, we're all certified professional ergonomists, so we have a lot of experience in looking at the different products and evaluating them from our ergonomic eye or ergonomic perspective. Some of you might be new to PROergonomics, or maybe you haven't worked with us yet. So I wanted to give just a little bit of background information on our company. As I mentioned, we are all certified professional ergonomists. There's myself, Alexandra Stinson, and Jennifer McGillis. We are also all registered kinesiologists in Ontario. Between the three of us, we've been consultants for several years. We've also worked as in-house ergonomists. So I think we've touched on just about any industry or all the different industries that are out there, from healthcare, manufacturing, school boards, government, corporate offices. By addressing ergonomics in the workplace, we ultimately are trying to work to prevent MSDs, or musculoskeletal disorders. Those are the strains and sprains injury, which many of you know are the leading type of workplace injury in Ontario. It's a huge cost to employers, so I can understand why many of you attend our webinars regularly and are looking for more ergonomic resources and education. Today's webinar will actually be a good example of when you would be doing ergonomics in a preventive manner. So for example, if you're setting up a new office and you're looking for some information on what products to get, and also on how to be reactive. So if you were to make some changes to help accommodate an employee with an injury, or if they were reporting discomfort. We love connecting with our current clients via these webinars, and if we haven't yet worked with you, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to talk to you about what you're working on for ergonomics. We're confident that our rates are competitive, and with our passion for ergonomics and our team approach, we always guarantee a really high level of customer service. Some of our services are listed here. You can always find more details on our website, and this isn't necessarily a comprehensive list. Some of the ones that I'll highlight just that are more applicable to today's session would be the office ergonomic assessments, as well as conducting ergonomic training. So, how to set up your computer workstation, for example. That would be for, for employees on teaching them how to do that, or also maybe to your Joint Health and Safety Committee or an ergonomics committee on how to do assessments. In terms of our agenda for today, just a little background on ergonomics so that we can explain that definition and make sure that when we are evaluating products, that we're evaluating them based on the ergonomics definition. We'll talk a little bit about office ergonomics setup, and then specifically I've got 4 different mouse and 4 different keyboard products that I'm going to review. By the end of the webinar, I'm hoping that you'll really be a much more educated consumer when it comes to purchasing keyboards and mouse products, and that hopefully you'll have a new perspective, an ergonomic perspective, when you are looking at other products as well. On that note, just because I'm going to be focusing on keyboards and mice today, if you do have any other questions about other products, feel free to use that chat bar and ask me any questions or comments, and I'll try to tackle the questions today, and if I don't get to them today, I'm happy to follow up and get you some more information. So what is ergonomics? There is the lengthy definition, and ultimately, if we're talking about the short and simple definition, it's fitting the task to the worker. But really, we're talking about how the user or the individual interacts with their system, so their environment, their tools, their equipment. In an office environment, for example, this would include your chair, your desk, monitor, keyboard, mouse, possibly a keyboard tray if you have one, maybe the shelving, the telephone, your documents, tablets, whatever you might use to get your job done. So in theory, when we're looking at this definition, an ergonomic product should improve how a person is interacting with their system. So whether it be by improving their comfort or reducing discomfort, increasing efficiency, reducing injury risk, those are the things that when something claims to be ergonomic, ideally that's what it should be. That should be its purpose. And that's not always the case. So we will talk about that in a bit more detail. The general office ergonomic setup is this figure pictured at the left here. Ideally, you are comfortable at the workstation. There are some angles given here, roughly your elbows at 90 degrees with your shoulders relaxed. Your neck should be straight. Your hips and your knees should be roughly at 90 degrees, your feet flat on the floor. Ideally, we're trying to get to this comfortable position, or we can call this the home position. And so really any product that you are using, keyboard, mouse, keyboard tray, monitor, they should be allowing you to achieve this general neutral posture. Comfort really is the key. So being able to move or adjust your equipment to fit your needs so that you can always get back to this home posture is really important, regardless of the product. So what makes a product ergonomic? We definitely see the word ergonomic used in a lot of marketing language for different products. You hear the word keyboard, ergonomic keyboard, ergonomic mouse, and what does that really mean? So we want to talk about this ergonomically friendly. It's on many packages. There's not really a standard in terms of, essentially companies can just use the word ergonomic as free as they want, as they choose. Remembering that ergonomics applies to how we interact with our environment, our tools, and our equipment, we want to be fitting the task to the worker. So if a product is truly ergonomic, it should be adhering to that definition. It should be helping us to achieve neutral postures and reduce the likelihood of those strain and sprain injuries. Think of your carpal tunnel or your tension neck syndrome or the general back discomfort. Unfortunately, the word ergonomics is used almost like a marketing gimmick, I want to say. What we see is that different products on the market are not really a one-size-fits-all solution. Not necessarily do they have to be either, but we do need to put on our quote-unquote ergonomic lenses and really determine why that product might be a good fit to really, know if we can call it ergonomic or not. So the three main questions, so if you want to kind of put on this ergonomic eye, you want to ask yourself these questions. So how is this product different or unique? How is it different from other products on the market? If this keyboard is called an ergonomic keyboard, how is it different from a standard keyboard? The second question is, how will this product change the way the user interacts with their equipment or tools? So again, thinking of a standard keyboard, how does it change? Is it going to change the position of their hands when they type? Is it going to change the height, the angle? What is it going to change? What discomfort or symptoms might this product help to correct? Okay, so if you're, again, thinking about a keyboard and you're going to a smaller one or a bigger one or one with no number pad or a number pad, you want to try and think about what type of an individual this is going to fit best with. So using these questions, I'm going to keep coming back to these questions as I go through each of the different products to highlight how is this specific product different and how does it change how we interact with it and then who it would be good for. But these are the questions that will really help you to view things from the perspective of an ergonomist or with that ergonomic eye. First, let's start with talking about some of the different mouse options you might see on the market. And we'll also talk a little bit just about the general mouse posture. So as a reminder, mouse should be at your elbow height, which means your elbows are roughly at 90 degrees, your shoulders are relaxed and in close to your body. The mouse and the keyboard should be at the same height, and really your mouse should be as close to your body as possible. So there's a picture there that kind of shows you the right and the wrong postures. So when we talk about having a straight wrist, we don't want it to be bent where your wrist is anchoring on the desk. We don't want it bent to the left or the right either. Here are a couple of different mouse products that I'm going to talk about specifically today. So the first one is a vertical mouse. The second one is a trackball mouse. The third one is a touchpad. And the fourth one is the RollerMouse. So let's start with the vertical mouse. The unique thing, so what makes this product different or unique, is that it changes the position of your hand. So instead of your hand being flat down, palm down on the desk, you're actually in more of a handshake position, which from an anatomical perspective is the more neutral position. So you're not getting the twisting in your forearm like between the elbow and wrist. In terms of how will this product change the way the user interacts with their environment, well, that's the key thing, is that it's changing the angle of your wrist and your forearm. But other than that, it's actually very similar in use to a standard mouse in terms of the buttons are in the same position. You're going to use the same fingers to click. It's a bit of a larger mouse, so you tend to have a bit more of a relaxed grip on it. What discomfort or symptoms might this product help to correct? Well, thinking about that, this mouse in particular would be good if somebody was starting to have some wrist discomfort, maybe some elbow discomfort. If somebody was having really advanced discomfort or problems, I'm not sure that I would necessarily recommend this mouse because you are stuck on still using it with the same hand. So if somebody is having a lot of right arm, whether it be shoulder, elbow, wrist discomfort, one of my thoughts might be to suggest getting them to mouse with the left hand. There are other options, of course, but with this style of mouse, you can only either mouse with your left or your right hand. You can purchase different options for the right and the left hand, but then you're stuck. You can't switch as you want. So that's some of the kind of unique features about this mouse. Yeah, it's called the vertical mouse. Another mouse that's common out there is called the trackball mouse. So this is just one example. You might have seen another style of trackball mouse where maybe it has the red ball instead. That's another really popular product. One of the neat things about this one is that the mouse doesn't actually move. So when you're using your standard mouse, you're actually sliding the mouse across your desk. Well, in this one, your hand just rests on this mouse or this trackball unit, and you use your fingers to manipulate that marble, and that's how your mouse cursor moves. So in this case, you're not getting any shoulder movement. There's very minimal gripping because, again, you're just using your fingers to manipulate it. So that kind of identifies how this product is different or unique, and it definitely changes how we interact with the mouse because in this case, we are not doing the same clicking. You're actually going to end up using probably your thumb to do some of your main clicking. So the clicking you normally do your double click with, you end up using your thumb. So you're using a different finger, and you're almost using your fingers more in this case than you would with a standard mouse. So this would be good for somebody, who did have some shoulder discomfort because it's going to minimize them moving their shoulder. It's going to help to keep it stationary. The nice thing about this is that you can switch it between the right or the left side. So you can place it on either side of your keyboard. One of the downfalls, and again, this is just something to keep in mind, is that this isn't really the best mouse for somebody who has small hands. So for myself in particular, I'm not a huge fan of using this mouse personally because I do find that my fingers almost have to stretch a little bit to manipulate that ball. So for me, and if you know me, you know that I have pretty small hands, but this is not the ideal mouse for me. I know a lot of, in general, I think it's more men that I know that use this mouse that tend to like it, and that would likely be due to their larger hand size in general. So again, just a couple of features to keep in mind. It is a little bit different than a standard mouse, but it's pretty easy to adapt to. A touchpad mouse. That one's probably a little easier. I don't have to explain it as much. But the nice thing about this is that it's very similar to a laptop touchpad. So, if you like a laptop touchpad mouse, then this would be very easy to adapt to. Again, because there's no buttons, you can switch it between the right or the left side. I mean, you could put it wherever you want it. Potentially could even sit in your lap or right in front of your keyboard. You have unlimited options really because it's pretty small. So it's great for travel as well. It can tuck away in your laptop bag, for example. There's no gripping at all. So if you've got somebody who is having wrist discomfort or the elbow discomfort that you think is from, potentially from the gripping, then what you want to do is this possibly could be a good option. But this is a very easy question to ask them. It's kind of a love-hate relationship. A lot of people are familiar with the touchscreen. So if they like a touchpad on a laptop, then this might be a good option for them. And if they say that they hate it, then you know right away that maybe you're going to consider another option for them, a different mouse option. Similar to the other mouse as well, the trackpad, is that there's no shoulder movement because the mouse stays stationary. It's just your fingers that are doing the movement. And the nice thing with several of these, there's multiple different models of touchpads out there, but the nice thing really is that you kind of use they have touchscreen features, right? So you know how you can pinch with your fingers to expand, and sometimes they'll have programmable hotkeys or different areas where you can program them to do different things, which I have found has been an enticing feature for people who do some graphic design work or people who do use a lot of keyboard shortcut keys. The last different mouse product that I want to review is the RollerMouse. This one's probably the most different from a standard mouse, and it can be kind of hard to explain, but I'll give you a little description here. If you're not familiar with this one, I'll just give you a bit of a description on how it's used. So it sits in front of your keyboard, and that's a pad at the front there. That's like a wrist pad, but the actual mouse is that black cushion on the metal bar, if that makes sense. So you slide that back and forth, which moves your cursor side to side, and you can roll it just like if you were rolling a pen in spot, and that is what's going to cause your cursor to go up and down. So this one is that, and then you push on you tap gently on that bar, and that's what is your click and your double click. And then they also have other buttons built in, which you see at the front there in the middle, that are programmed to do your click and your double click or your right and left clicks. So in terms of how is it different from a standard mouse, well, it's very different. In this case, you're putting it right in front of you, so it's at the midline. If you were having shoulder or wrist discomfort that you thought was related to reaching to the mouse, well, this is going to eliminate that because there's no reaching, there's no gripping. It's right in at your midline, so again, you're not reaching to the side. Because it's at your midline and the way it's designed, it's designed to help encourage you to be using both hands simultaneously. So one hand could be moving the mouse cursor, the other hand would be doing the buttons, and then it's nice and close for you to be able to type as well. Drawbacks of this mouse would, I don't know if this is obvious to some of you, but that it can be, there might be a bit more of a learning curve on this one. And I don't know, maybe that's not even necessarily a drawback, right? There is a learning curve on any new product that you put in place, but this one is just, it's a little more different, a little tougher to get used to. Feedback that I have heard though is that learning to use a RollerMouse is actually easier than learning to use a touchpad. So keep that in mind. Something else that some people have commented is a deterring factor on this one too is the cost. In comparison to some of the other mouse products that I've shown, it's about double the price. So it may not necessarily be your first choice. Maybe you try some other products first or another one first that you think would work, and then go to this one. Definitely though, if you're having anybody with some severe shoulder or wrist pain, this potentially could be a game changer for them because it is that much different. It might be a good idea to have one of these on hand, maybe as a demo or something to be able to try with different people to see if it would be a good solution. So let's move on to talking about some different keyboard products that you think are on the market. At this time, I'll just pause briefly to see if there are any questions. Okay, I don't see any on the chat bar, so you're all listening intensely. That's good. So when we talk about general, like the good posture, the recommended posture when you're typing, the keyboard should be, very similar to the mouse. It should be at elbow height, so your elbows are at 90 degrees, your shoulders are relaxed. A good tip is to line the B and the N key on your keyboard at the midline of your body, so that's all in line. Ideally, your keyboard should be flat. or on a negative angle. So what that means is that you absolutely should not be using those little lifters that are on the bottom of your keyboard, because usually they're at the top of the keyboard, right? So they're actually angling the keyboard towards you. So unless you are what I call a hunt and peck typer, where you need to look at the keys when you're typing, there's absolutely no reason why your keyboard should be angled towards you. It should be flat. And if you want to get a little bit more advanced and modern, you can actually have the keyboard tilted slightly away from you. The goal is that you are typing with straight wrists. So regardless of whether you're using a standard keyboard or any of the other ones that I'm about to review, really you're trying to get straight wrists, which means your hands aren't bent out to the side like that top picture, the top right, and as well your wrists aren't anchored on the desk with that bent wrist posture. So here are the different keyboards that I'm going to talk about. By all means, these are not all that are on the market, but these are some of the ones that we most frequently get questions about, or, you know, and also I think these are probably some of the ones that we most often recommend as well. But the first one is the Wave keyboard, which I think when most people think about an ergonomic keyboard, this is the one that they're describing. The second one is a split keyboard. You can see there's two halves. The third one I'll review is a mouse-friendly keyboard, formerly called a left-handed keyboard, and you can see the number pads on the left side. And the fourth one's a compact keyboard, so that's just a smaller version of a keyboard. Usually it means that there's no number pad. So first, starting with the Wave keyboard, this one, like I said, is the one that most often when people say, oh, I have an ergonomic keyboard, and if I haven't seen their keyboard, it's likely that this is what they're describing. It kind of has that typical Wave style to it. And then you can see from the smaller picture that the keys are actually sloped as well. So as much as the keys are kind of splayed apart, the whole keyboard itself is sloped. It has lots of hotkeys, and what I mean by hotkeys is if you look at the top row of that keyboard, those buttons represent, I think you can control your volume, you can control home, your internet, like go to your internet browser, open your email quickly. I think I don't know if this specific Microsoft keyboard does, but some of the ones that are styled like this, you can program some of those hotkeys. So things that you use often, you have quick access to. So it is different from a standard keyboard, obviously in the shape and the style and the positioning of the keys. And for a lot of people, this helps them to get straight wrists. So on a standard keyboard, especially if you have larger hands or a wider shoulder breadth, this type of a keyboard might be a good option to help so that you're not typing with your wrist bent out to the side or that ulnar deviation. Now, the downside is that if you have smaller hands or if you are more of a petite person, this keyboard actually is quite large and it might not be the ideal fit for you. This keyboard measures about, I think it's almost 20 inches in width. So if you are already having shoulder discomfort that you think might be related to using the mouse, this is actually going to make your mouse further away if you're keeping your mouse on the right side. So it's really not the ideal keyboard for smaller users. But overall, like a good general keyboard, the whole idea, I think it's one of the first ergonomic keyboards on the market. So it kind of has an interesting concept, and a lot of the other keyboards were kind of mimicked and designed after this style. So here's another option of keyboard, a split keyboard, which the goal of this keyboard is really to it is mimicking that previous keyboard, the Microsoft keyboard, but in the sense that you get to choose the angle. So you get to choose the angle of those keys. You get to choose how far they are separated. So it's giving more options to try to address fitting the small users and the large users. So if we talk about people with small hands or a small shoulder width versus the people with large hands and large shoulder width, you can choose to have the halves side by side, or you can choose to have them up to 9 inches apart. I think you can actually get an extension too if you wanted it really far apart, up to 20 inches. And actually, this keyboard, I have an interesting story. Actually, I saw somebody once when I went in to go meet with them. They were having a lot of shoulder discomfort, so a modification that he had made to his own workstation was that he was using 2 keyboards on his desk. So he had both of them plugged in, and he was using half of the keyboard, typing on half of the keyboard with his left hand and the other half of the second keyboard with his right hand, essentially trying to mimic what this keyboard was doing. So, that was a nice, easy recommendation. It was almost like if he had been, a year or two earlier and a little more creative, he probably could have created this keyboard based on what his little homemade solution had been. Another unique thing that you may or may not have noticed with this keyboard is that it doesn't have a number pad. So that's something that's definitely unique compared to a standard keyboard. It does have an embedded number pad, sorry. So, you can hit a function key and then some of the letters will turn into a number pad. But for people who are using the number pad heavily, that's not really a good option. You'd want to look at buying a separate number pad just to keep them more efficient. This one also has several hotkeys. So down the left column or the left side of that keyboard, their hotkeys for this keyboard are things like copy, paste, scroll, home, back, forward. So things that you can use in your internet browser and just general word processing. The copy paste is pretty handy. And there are several different accessories that it comes with. So you can see the smaller pictures at the bottom there where you can angle the keys so you get more of that sloped position. And I think those are adjustable in 5-degree increments. So 5 degrees, 10 degrees, 15 degrees. You can get cushions like the palm rest to apply at the front. And if you want to get really funky, then you can have your keyboard set up like that picture on the bottom right. I personally have not tried typing this way, and I haven't seen anybody type like this or use this keyboard in that way. But Jen is saying that she has seen somebody do that once. One person that we've seen in all of our years of consulting. So definitely it's not common. I think you would absolutely have to be a touch typist in order to make this work, or we'd have a whole nother nightmare of ergonomic postures on our hands here. I will highlight that one of the drawbacks of this keyboard is that if you are not a touch typist, so if you have to look at the keys while you're typing or whichever, there's definitely a learning curve to try to type with this. I thought that I was a good typer, and then I tried this keyboard as a demo, and it really highlighted to me of how not good of a typer I am. So the positive is really that it helped me become a better typer. So I guess that's the good news of that story. Great keyboard though, and lots of different ways that you can use this one. The next one is a mouse-friendly keyboard, or you may have heard it called a left-handed keyboard. So if you look closely at this keyboard, what you'll notice the major difference is that the number pad is on the left side. There's really very minimal differences in this keyboard to a standard keyboard other than the position of the number pad. This particular model has a really low profile, which means that it's really slim, so that can help with some wrist postures. And as well, it has several hotkeys along the top, right? So you can open up your email, you can adjust the volume of your speakers. Those are things that are definitely missing on most standard keyboards. You can see from the pictures at the bottom, it really helps to demonstrate, and this I pulled right from the Evoluent website, that's the maker of this keyboard. You can see how it really improves the shoulder posture. So if you're somebody who mouses on the right side and you really can't give up mousing on the right side, then a keyboard like this might be a good option, especially if you are having shoulder pain, right shoulder pain. Because look at the picture with the white keyboard, for example. They are now reaching over the number pad to use the mouse, and you can see that this individual, her shoulder is just out ever so slightly. But take that with 7 hours a day working on a computer, 35 hours a week or more for some people. That can really add up, even though it doesn't seem like that big of an angle. And you can see that by moving the number pad to the left side, or basically eliminating the number pad really, is that the mouse is able to move that much closer on the right side. So it's improving the shoulder posture quite significantly. So I like to consider these types of keyboards because, again, it's a pretty low learning curve in terms of typing with the keys. The keys aren't split or anything like that. So really helps with the mousing, with postures with the mouse. The compact keyboard is very, very similar to the benefits of the left-handed keyboard or that mouse-friendly keyboard because it really doesn't have a number pad. So the bonuses of this is that, how we said the mouse was closer to the body. Well, if you were a right-hand mouser or a left-hand mouser, it's close to the body on either side. it has a really small footprint, so it fits better in small spaces. So if you have a small workspace, small desk, maybe a small keyboard tray, this can be a good fit. And again, it has several hotkeys like the other ones. One of the things that I will warn you when you're looking at these compact keyboards is that this is where you see the most variance. They're not all created equal. This product in particular, it's the Evoluent keyboard, compact keyboard, and all of the alphabet keys are the same size as a standard keyboard, but often what you get in a compact keyboard, or some of those ones that you get that are like called a laptop keyboard, or even the ones that are supposed to attach to your smartphones, the keys will be a lot smaller, so that can actually create worse postures for typing. So if the keys get smaller, then it can actually cause worse wrist postures. So when we're trying to get to this optimal neutral or straight wrist posture, just be careful in terms of the compact keyboard that you are purchasing. I do like this keyboard, the Evoluent one, though. This is probably one of my favorite compact keyboards on the market from my own personal opinion. It's one that I have used. I always try to demo different products, so I think this one's a good option. If you really needed a number pad, then you could always buy one separate, and that way then, think about if you use your mouse way more often than your number pad, maybe then your mouse goes directly beside your keyboard, and then maybe the number pad goes, maybe you put it on the left side, or maybe you put it on the other side of your mouse, right, to the outside of your mouse. There are several different options. In general, I find that when I'm talking about moving the number pad around, people who are in finance or those who rely really heavily on the number pad are way less likely to want to try a keyboard like this, or one with no number pad or one with it on the left side. And so then that's when you might consider some other keyboard options or mouse options for them. Okay, so I'm just getting some information here that that some people are having a hard time hearing me. Is that across the board? I just want to double check if that's for everybody or if just one specific connection. If you could just use the chat bar there to give me a heads up that you can hear me still. Okay, great. So getting some feedback that most people can hear me. So for the person who mentioned you couldn't hear me, I'm really sorry. I'll try and see if Jen can address that. It might just be a connection on your end. Great, you got it back. Good to hear. Okay, so when we put all this together, we want to really talk about being an educated consumer. We want to make sure that we're purchasing the right product. And so what I would suggest is that you are remembering those questions that I asked at the beginning. So those 3 questions, and then I've added a 4th one on here as well. So you want to ask these questions of yourself before purchasing. How is this product different or unique? So from the keyboards and the mouse that we looked at, how is it different from the standard mouse? Maybe you're looking at a different product. Maybe it's not a keyboard or a mouse. Maybe you're looking at buying a new can opener, for example, because they do have ergonomic can openers out there. So you want to know, how is it different from the standard product? Make sure that you're asking yourself, how will this product change the way I interact with my environment, or my equipment? So is it going to change my posture? Is it going to change, is it going to make me faster? What is it specifically that it's going to change? You really want to think about that. Then based on how it's changing how you interact it might help you to address what discomfort or symptoms this product is going to help to correct. Right, so a left-handed keyboard, or the one with the number pad on the left side, for example, is really going to help with right shoulder discomfort, because traditionally people are using the number pad and the mouse on the right side. When you're thinking about a new product, you think, okay, great, left-handed keyboard, great, it's going to fix those right shoulder problems. What are the potential drawbacks? Well, remember, if you think about somebody who's in finance, for example, they are not going to like that solution. That is going to be really tough for them, because now they're going to have to use the number pad with their left hand, and potentially that might slow them down a lot. So you might want to look for a different option there. Really, when it comes to all of the different products that are in the market, there's not really a one-size-fits-all, but there is, you can ask yourself what's going to fit best for this individual in this situation. most products have videos that are available on their website, and I think that that's really important to note because some of them are quite different than a standard product. And so you need to make sure, that you are choosing the right product and that you're involving training and education when implementing, even if it's something as simple as a new keyboard or a mouse, you want to have some education or some training on that to make sure that they don't, the person doesn't just, or even yourself, that you don't just try it for 10 minutes and say, oh, nope, I hate it. Right? It can take up to 21 days to master a new device, especially if you're having to train new muscles. So you think about even just teaching yourself to mouse with your left side as opposed to your right side. That's not something that's going to happen in 10 minutes. I mean, you really want to try to set yourself up for success. So watch the videos, learn the tips and tricks on what this product can do, and set yourself up for success. Maybe you don't choose to use something brand new the day that you have a major deadline to meet. Maybe you want to try a new product for an hour today, and then tomorrow you'll increase to 2 hours. There's different strategies that you might want to put in place to make sure that you get the most success out of using the equipment. We often hear comments about the cost of these types of ergonomic equipment. So it's a really good idea to think about ergonomic equipment or any of these unique keyboards or mice as an investment that gets paid back to you in time in injury prevention. So you want to really make sure that you're matching the furniture and equipment to your workers' needs. So whether it be their size, their capabilities, the specific job tasks that they're doing, all of those things are really key and important in terms of getting the right product, so getting the right fit, fitting the task to the worker. So I'm just going to pause and see if there are any questions. No questions today. You guys are a quiet bunch today. So if you have any questions at any point, don't forget to use that chat bar. You can choose to send it to just the presenters or send to everybody to see. It's up to you. In terms of your next steps, what I might suggest to you all is really to evaluate your existing equipment and workstations. So maybe you are attending this webinar because you have an interest in just in general about office ergonomic setup and different products that are out there. Maybe you've attended because you have somebody specifically in mind that is asking for a keyboard or a mouse or a chair or a new sit-stand desk or whatever it might be. But you want to try to evaluate your equipment and workstations, decide how you're going to address any incoming questions. So often what we find is that people are developing a standard for purchasing new equipment. So you'll find, especially in, well, it doesn't have to be a large organization, but it happens probably more so in the bigger organizations where you have different departments just ordering whatever they want. They flip through the Staples or Grand and Toy catalog and say, oh, that looks good, and they purchase it. But if you set some limits in terms of, you develop a standard to set those limits, and okay, well, you can choose from this chair or this chair, or here are 3 keyboards, and then maybe there's a process that they have to answer a certain number of questions or whatever it is, or have an ergonomic assessment, for example, before they can officially purchase the specific equipment. There are different ways to go about it. You need to think about what's going to work most efficiently and effectively within your organization. And then you want to follow up and evaluate the equipment, because remember, you might think that, okay, we've purchased it, that's what they wanted, that seemed like a good fit. Great, I've given it to them, check them off the box, they're done. But if we don't do that follow-up and that evaluation piece, we could be missing getting some very valuable feedback and potentially even trying a different product. Maybe they didn't like that one, and now they're just back to where they started, and the injury or the discomfort hasn't been resolved. Really important not to wait for injuries to happen. You want to be proactive. Okay, so I've got a question here. What are your thoughts about a keyboard with a trackball or touchpad built in? Interesting. Are these products available through places like Staples, Grand & Toy, Lyrico? Yes. Okay, so I've definitely seen those keyboards. Usually they are kind of in that compact keyboard family. So they're smaller and they have a trackball mouse or a touchpad mouse built in. I'm not necessarily opposed to them, but my same warnings will apply when talking about a compact keyboard, is that you want to make sure that the keys are the normal size. Otherwise, you're getting a small keyboard, which potentially could be causing worse wrist postures. As well, you don't get that same flexibility in being able to move the mouse on the right or the left side And depending on the location of that mouse pad, so the touchpad or the trackball, sometimes the trackball is up in the, the upper right corner. And for some people that might be a bit more of a reach than where a standard mouse is, so that might not be great in terms of shoulder discomfort. And I've tried one model, I haven't tried several different models, but I know that one of the frustrations or drawbacks that I found was that the touchpad was really sensitive. So as I was typing, my pinky finger would kind of drag across the touchpad, and it was, maybe I didn't give myself long enough to learn how to use it, but that was definitely a drawback and just something to consider. Okay, and are these products available through places like Staples? Absolutely, I've seen those available. All the different mouse pads, let's see, if we look at all the different products that I recommended, I think most of them are available at Grand & Toy. I think Staples has some of them. Maybe the mouse-friendly keyboard and the specific compact keyboard that I showed, the Evoluent products. I don't think that Staples has those particularly, but what I have been told by Staples in the past is that you can do a special order. So if you're with Staples Advantage, for example, or eWay, I believe that if you contact your rep, you can ask for a special order. But, I would check in your Grand & Toy and your Staples and your Lyrical catalog for what they have. And if you don't see something there, then you might be able to find it. Maybe you can find a picture or the product name at a more of a, I'll call it a quote-unquote boutique ergonomic place. So somewhere that we often go to resources is Ergo Now or Ergo Canada. They have several different products that you can kind of look up. You could always bring that to your Grand & Toy or Staples rep and see if they could get you that same product, right? So that you can still get your kind of preferred pricing. So I hope that answers that question. I've got another question coming in. Could you please share your thoughts on keyboard trays? Absolutely. So keyboard trays, I think, are a possible solution to getting the right working height. Again, if we're talking about that good ergonomic posture, we are trying to get our elbows at a 90-degree angle, our shoulders relaxed. We want our keyboard and mouse to be, right in that comfortable work zone. And so what you might find is that if you have your chair adjusted where your feet are flat on the floor, more often than not, the desk height or having your keyboard and mouse on the desk is a little bit too high, right? It could be like an inch or two too high for people. So my first suggestion for people is always to try to raise their chair height to see if they can get their chair high enough to get their, so they can be at elbow height with their mouse and their keyboard. And then, of course, we would always make sure to recommend a footrest to make sure that their feet are supported. That's probably one of the quickest solutions in terms of cost effectiveness. You can try it out right then and there to see if it's making a change. And then if that doesn't work, then I might suggest a keyboard tray, which would then lower the keyboard and mouse down to their elbow height so they could keep their feet flat on the floor. Keyboard trays, they're not a make or a break. So, you don't have to have a keyboard tray to have an ergonomically friendly workstation. And similarly, just because you have a keyboard tray doesn't mean that you have the perfect workstation either. It still comes down to the height that you've got it adjusted at and whether or not it's the right fit for your workstation. There are a couple other reasons why you might want to recommend a keyboard tray or not, but primarily it's due to height. So hopefully that helps to answer some of your questions. And if you've got a specific case in mind, a specific desk in mind that you're thinking about a keyboard tray for, hopefully maybe we can have another conversation afterwards and address that. Okay, another question. What is your opinion on the vertical mouse versus the 20 to 30 degree angled mouse? Okay, so I didn't address the 20 to 30 degree angled mouse, and I can't think of the brand name of that mouse right now, but I know which one you're talking about. I can totally picture it. So the vertical mouse, I've used. Again, I've tried lots of different products that are out there. I like the vertical mouse because it is a nice, comfortable handshake position. What you might find with that 20 to 30 degree angled mouse is that maybe it's kind of that in-between posture. So you're not having the completely quote-unquote neutral or handshake position like the vertical mouse, but your hand is still getting in more of a neutral, or kind of it's a less twisted posture. I'm not sure that I necessarily prefer one over the other. I'm definitely less familiar with that angled mouse than I am with the vertical mouse, so that could be just a matter of my familiarity in terms of when or why I might recommend it. But if whoever asked that question, actually, if you could send me the brand name, that would be really handy. And I would love to get to know more about that mouse so that I could better answer your question. Okay, so any other questions? Oh, I see one. What do you think about the Contour mouse? Okay, great. So that mouse, Contour is the brand. The Contour mouse basically looks very similar to a standard mouse, except that it's a flatter top as opposed to a curved shape, if you can picture it. And so I actually do like that mouse. What it promotes is less gripping of the mouse. So what we often find, if somebody is reporting discomfort in their wrist or their elbow or shoulder, I often tend to focus on how they're using the mouse. And what I do find is that if the mouse isn't really a good fit for them, let's say the mouse is too small for their hand, then what they might be doing is over gripping or kind of using the claw grip on the mouse. And so the Contour mouse, what's nice about that is because it's flatter, is that you can't really get that claw grip on it. Your hand has to rest more flat, and it's definitely more relaxed. And then when you click on the buttons themselves are actually a little longer than a standard mouse, so it promotes more finger muscles, so larger muscle group really to click. So I do like it. It's, again, very similar to a standard mouse, so in terms of learning how to use it and adapting, it would potentially be a little quicker, but it's not changing things as drastically. So I know if somebody was having severe discomfort, I might go to something a little more different than the Contour mouse first, but if it was, just some mild discomfort, that might be okay, because it's still going to use some similar forearm muscles, as opposed to something totally different like a RollerMouse. Another question coming in, what's your opinion on standing desks? 'Tis the million-dollar question. So standing desks, definitely of the mindset, and all of us here at PROergonomics believe this too, is that I don't think that you necessarily have to have a standing workstation in order to be ergonomically correct. We do try to promote movement while at work, and trying to get the right equipment to make sure that you are set up in a comfortable, neutral posture. By no means just because you've got the equipment that helps you achieve that posture, like that picture perfect posture where your hips are at 90, your knees are at 90, your elbows are at 90. It's not that you should stay frozen in that position all day. So we will recommend standing desks when need arises, but it's not necessarily our go-to. We often try to look for other solutions before we go to that. Actually, we did a webinar on sitting versus standing workstations a few months back, so where I gave lots about my opinion on them in more detail. So if you're more interested in that, I might consider checking out that webinar, and we can also have another conversation again if you're thinking about a specific employee, and whether or not a standing desk would be a good solution for them. I'm happy to have that conversation afterwards. So any other questions? Okay, and one more question here. Have you ever used the RSI guard stretch software? Do you find these stretch programs useful? Interesting. I'm not familiar with that specific software program. I have seen other stretching software programs, and interestingly enough, Jen did she did a presentation last month actually on stretching programs in the workplace, and she referenced a couple of different ones. So again, that webinar is available via recording on our YouTube channel. But I do find that there's a lot we could talk about stretching software programs. I think they can be helpful. I also think they can be annoying and then not useful, right? If people find them annoying, they're just going to click them off and not even use them. But I'm not familiar specifically with the one that you are mentioning, but I'll definitely look it up and get back to you. Okay. So that looks to be about all of the questions that are there. Obviously I'll stay online for a bit longer here and just feel